Hey everyone, welcome back to the EarthX TV stage here at EarthX 2025. I am your host, Dylan Welch, and we are joined by an amazing guest today, Dr. Shelby Thomas, the CEO and founder of Ocean Rescue Alliance International. Shelby, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got so acquainted with the ocean.
Yeah, so I grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida, all my life, surfing and around the ocean, and really had a passion for connecting with nature, and I credit it to making me who I am. And I ended up studying biomedical research, which ended up running into using secondary metabolites from corals for anti-cancer properties for medicine, and quickly finding we have the third largest barrier reef in the world in Florida. And at the end of 2014, during my schooling, we had a massive disease outbreak that spread like wildfire across the reef tract. And our stony corals are now 90% dead in Florida. And seeing that pivot just in my short lifetime shifted my whole career back to conservation and restoration. And we need these ecosystems for humanity. We live on a blue planet, and we live here because of the ocean. So it's incredibly important to protect it, and I've dedicated my life to that.
Well, I live in San Diego, so I know how it is to be right on the ocean, and literally watching these effects take place where we live is very impactful. So thank you for taking that initiative. I know you have some information that you're going to share with us, so why don't you take it away and let's see what you got.
Yeah, so this is a little of the backstory of how and why we got to what we do now. And so Ocean Rescue Alliance really started from a love for the ocean and to do restoration. So growing up in Florida, I got to dive. I joined the scientific dive program throughout my university and started teaching and monitoring our reef tract. And again, getting to work with a diversity of different species throughout my scientific career. I did applied restoration with scallops, oysters, mangroves, seagrass, and corals. And corals are my heart and my passion. But then that really led to seeing that firsthand interaction of the degradation. And we went from going from reefs like this that are beautiful, thriving, healthy ecosystems to seeing this life that's a colorful reef to a white, dead, lifeless reef. And such a short time. And the biggest pivot for me that shifted my whole career was during one of these monitoring events. I watched as a endangered coral called a mountainous star coral, the size of a dining room table, die in 3 days. Wasn't on the news. No one was talking about it. And off of someone's multi-million-dollar mansion. And that coral had been alive more than all of us collectively. And it died in 3 days. And that's when I really realized the need and precedence of being a voice for the voiceless and speaking up for these ecosystems that need restoration, and we also need them. And you'd see these ecosystems then turn into these wastelands of rubble. And with that leaves all the fisheries, and it collapses further. And these ecosystems are incredibly important for coastal protection, habitat, ecosystem services, but also economic. A majority of populations live on a coastline and depend on a healthy ecosystem. And so these collapses are instrumental in the oceans, often out of sight, out of mind for many people. And that really led to my realization that through my whole scientific career, really seeing that the greatest threat to humanity is our disconnection from nature. And that got me really interested in, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face about how corals and the ocean will save humanity. In fact, not just from a medical perspective, but there's so many advancements from technology that we could be learning from our oceans. We want to go to outer space? Well, look at coral reefs. They're the initial astronomers of the sea. They colonize in one place using the stars and the moon to settle out for their whole life and coordinate synchronously to reproduce. What can we learn from that? What can we learn from deep sea organisms that can move thousands of meters, which are huge pressure differentials? If we're wanting to do space transportation, what can we learn from our deep sea ocean? 4 to 5% of the ocean's explored. And we have so much to discover, so much to learn. And ultimately, what we see is this disconnection. So I became really interested in how do we shift our relationship with people and nature. And really believing through serving nature, we serve ourselves. But that led through a pathway of actually discovering art. And art has been used throughout history to tell stories about people and nature, like the cave paintings from Lucas, France, to Egyptian hieroglyphs about the way of life and culture, about Guernica, which was about war, and by Picasso, or Triumphs and Several Shifts. Art is a snapshot of what's going on culturally throughout history. That's universal, it's a language. And so it's such a powerful tool to tell us about community history, and that's what really led into Ocean Rescue Alliance, a partnership between an artist, a scientist, and engineer. And it all started from an artist approaching me, wanting to put corals on a mermaid. And he asked every coral restoration scientist in Florida about putting corals on. And everyone was like, get out of town, see you later. Pretty much ignored him. He messaged me, and I'm like, I knew immediately we couldn't put the coral out on the mermaid, but this guy cared about coral. I'll have a coffee with him. I wanted to know why. And as we got to talk, I was like, well, we can't put the coral on the mermaid, but maybe I could design a reef to mimic natural reef geology and put it next to the mermaid and put coral on that. And then we can use the mermaid to bring awareness and fund the restoration work that we need to do. And so that's how this organization was born, coming together between an artist, our reef builder who's an engineer, and a scientist. And I believe that is what's needed now today, is the convergence of different disciplines and having an open mind. And it's at that intersection where magic can happen, right? Between imagination and observation and combining that together. And that's really what we do. Our mission is to connect people back to nature, but build regenerative projects that support the environment and people, and really believe in building models that can support scaled work. So our waves of action really focus around, at the core fundamental, designing infrastructure that mimics natural reef geology, meets functional needs for coastal protection, habitat, scaling, coral, oyster, and mangrove restoration, but using art as a bridge, as a tool to connect people back to the ocean. But it also creates ecotourism sites. Now people can come experience and connect with the ocean in a different way while helping support the economy. And the art's the fun part, because we can do infinitely different creative ideas that can connect community and culture. And once these sites are there, we aim to do citizen science and engagement programs, partnerships, and research to contribute to restoration. But this is really the core of what we do, and this is one of our natural reef habitat modules. So you can see the micro and macro habitat on the right. Compared to traditional artificial reefs, are really trash of land. And so we're really using today's technology. We have the opportunity to be very intentional and strategic about design. And so that's really what we're working on, is working with nature rather than against it, and using it as an inspiration to help facilitate and scale that work for nature while putting out natural resources. So that's an example, 1 week versus 9 months. You can see that habitat module looks a lot more natural. Wow. And all of those little circles, we can screw in a coral just like a bolt. So that's one of our advancement technologies, but we have other pillars of artificial design, breakwaters that reduce wave energy to protect against shore erosion, restoration scalability of corals, oysters, and mangroves, supporting fish biodiversity, and then the fun part, the art. And so we can take any image, person, or logo and make them into an artificial reef. But the also beauty is we can make a virtual and augmented reality where anyone can dive from anywhere in the world and learn and interact with the ocean. And so really one of our desires is to create accessibility to marine resources. And we've been blessed to do a variety of different artistic projects throughout Florida. We have 5 deployment sites, 35 sculptures. One of our biggest projects is called the 1,000 Mermaids Reef, which started with the single mermaid. But it's really using the symbol of the mermaid, which is a half human, half fish. That symbolizes our human connection to the ocean, and that mystery, magic, and curiosity. And what can we use from an art perspective to really tie people in deeply to the ocean? So we've gotten to put out a variety of different artistic sculptures, a lot of habitat modules. We're doing assisted migration of moving corals from the southern part of the Keys up the reef track and being able to put them in current climate conditions where they're in cooler waters and away from disease to thrive. So it's really meeting climate adaptation and being able to help facilitate nature being able to survive and thrive. These are some other images of some of our underwater art. We have a blue ocean heart and our mermaid selfie tail. So if you come visit, you can take a selfie as a mermaid and become one yourself. But what's at a deeper level, what we desire to do with art is tie in culture. And we're embarking on a new journey doing a Mayan reef with Mayan elders in Mexico. to do the serpent deity called the Kluklon. And this enables us to create a breakwater that protects the coastline, a coral nursery base that tourism and tourists get to interact and help with restoration, but it's also a way to experience Mayan history in a new light. And imagine if we could create different sites around the world that told a story of the history of that community. That's the power of using art. And it's a way to get people to connect, not just culturally, but directly with nature and the environment to protect it. And we're excited to be actually at the end of this month, we're deploying our third reef with the city of Hollywood, our first snorkel reef in Florida that you'll be able to access 8 to 10 feet of water. And we're putting up 50 structures as part of the Guardians of the Reef. So we're going to do Poseidon, Amphitrite, 5 marine guardians, and some mermaids. And we want to engage community. We're launching a few wellness programs that will start on the beach, doing meditation, breathwork workshops that move into snorkeling and free diving, and then scuba diving and outplanting coral with us. So we want to get people connected and nurturing community and each other, but also nature. These are some of our lasting educational programs, really engaging underserved community members and youth directly in our restoration work and creating accessibility to the ocean, but also job opportunities. You know, I can't tell you how many times I used to want to be a marine biologist, but, you know, now there's such a horizon of different work that you can do in the ocean that's regenerative, it supports the environment and communities. So it's super exciting. We want to get youth engaged. And this is really this wellness program where we have the opportunity to engage people who might not get to go in the water. We're 75% water, and so is our planet. We have salt water in our blood. We are incredibly dependent on water for life, but this connection to the ocean that we all share. And we need to come back to it and come back to nature. And so really through Live Blue, we want people to live blue and connect back to the ocean and each other. And so we have a series of programs we're launching with this next reef deployment. And, you know, lastly, wrapping up, there's a lot of issues in scaling marine restoration. Industrially, we've heard so much this week on how people are outplanting thousands of trees and doing so much on land. We just really haven't met that efficiency underwater, but we need to. And so some of those issues are scale, cost, the efficiency and training that goes along with that, as well as materials. And mostly for corals, people individually glue and outplant or epoxy corals to substrate. Same thing for oysters. It's kind of a blanket approach everywhere, and it's not as scalable. And so we wanted to help meet that solution with infrastructure. So we've developed patents in attachment techniques like our coral lock. It's a threaded frag plug. You can screw in a coral like a bolt. Makes it where a 10-year-old could be doing restoration. We also have a mangrove lock and a spat mat, so we're rapidly affixing natural resources to infrastructure to scale restoration and get thousands of species out more efficiently. And we've done over 30,000 corals with partners on natural reefs like this, making different designs that take into local ecology into account. So we're not doing everything the exact same. It's really important to understand survivalship and how can we make adaptive solutions that'll actually make this work successful. And we've been getting to do different settlement experiments with getting baby corals and sexually reproducing corals with the Florida Aquarium, testing different substrates to recruit those corals to our reef structures, but also be able to put out genetically biodiverse individuals when we're doing restoration. So we're taking a holistic approach and not just doing fragmentation. So we're increasing genetic biodiversity and being able to scale different size classes of corals so we have more success. We recently launched our own coral labs, very exciting, in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. We're looking to get some more support to ramp those up along the coastline in the world. And, you know, lastly, I will end on this photo, and we can get into some questions and discussion. But this is really what we want to create all around the world. It's ecosystems that are built to protect coastlines, aid in restoration, and help connect communities together through art. So I believe in a thriving environment and thriving people, and we're on our way. So
yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you for putting all this together. I love hearing when you find the scientist, the artist, the researcher all coming together and making it happen. Really quick though, let's kind of bring it back and then we'll focus on more positive things. So that's what I liked about this presentation was the solutions. For just the average person, what is causing all of these coral reefs to die, and maybe what can we do as individuals to take some action against that?
Great question. So a lot of coral reefs around the world are impacted by temperature change, disease, pollution, ocean acidification, and that's not just specific to corals. That's all of our marine ecosystems. We're seeing eutrophication, which is where a lot of heavy nutrients from agriculture and different nutrients from land that go into water bodies. But we can also use nature as a solution to help address some of these things. So nature is very resilient, but just like our corals and mangroves and seagrasses, they're all impacted by water quality, by rising temperature, and ocean acidification. Corals have been around for thousands of years, and if we give them a chance to thrive and work with them, they'll be resilient. Nature really does great at healing itself if we give it the opportunity.
And if you could just give everyone one action item that we can all take with us next time we go to the beach or are living, what could we do to change our lives to just be more mindful of the corals?
Well, certainly, aside from just the corals, because everything connects, is looking at your individual impact of what you do daily. Where can I be more efficient and cut down and become an eco-conscious individual? Because if all of us do that as a societal mindset, if we use a little less water, if we make sure we eat all of our food or share it with someone that might be able to finish that for us or put it back into a soil rather than waste it, right, in compost. There's so many things you can do as an individual at home that makes an instrumental difference on how we interact and impact our environment. So I'd say that's the primary is do your part, spread the word, and lastly, use your voice. No matter what you do, whether you're an attorney, a marketer, a storyteller, you can be a voice for something you care about. And the corals need it, the ocean needs it, but there's so many causes, and I really believe everybody has a gift, and we need you to speak up for something you care about too.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about speaking up, and let's talk about some fun stuff, all right? No more problems. I love to scuba dive. I got certified a couple years ago. Whenever I travel, I try to scuba dive. It helps connect you with nature. It helps connect you with locals. And one thing I've noticed is I've dove in a few places that have sculptures like this. And diving is a very video, photograph friendly thing, right? So you want to get photos of this, you want to get videos, you want to share it. So that's just a great idea that you've kind of put together to make something that people don't normally see, something that's underwater. Most people will never see this, much more accessible to the average person through social media, through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, things like that. So can you share maybe one big success that you've had? What's sort of been your biggest win up until this point?
Ooh. The thing that I love to do is taking people who have nothing, like don't really care or interact with the ocean, is like converting them to ocean people. And so I'd say something I'm really proud about with working with different cities and counties is being able to actually shift through patience and experience their relationship with the ocean and seeing that translate to actually valuing the resource in a totally different way. And actually for a few of our projects, we typically have worked with cities, and we had a city that was like, we just want the art. Like, that's it. I was like, that's not how it works, sorry. But let me show you.
Package deal.
Every art piece, we try to do at least 10 habitat units, because that's
Oh, wow. So
what
every
we
single
focus
one
on.
has multiple units.
Yeah, so we surround it with the habitat reefs, and that's
It's
the
like a
core of
village
what we
of
do.
art. That's really
and
cool.
the art still has habitat, but it's not like the natural reef design, right? And so that's a requirement for our work, is to do restoration and create habitat. So we're like, you have to do habitat, but let me show you why. And so they get to come out and dive with us and firsthand see, the architectural saying, if you build it, they will come. The fish move in right away. Like, that's my house, right?
Yeah.
Free fish housing.
Free real estate.
But you see it. You can touch it. You can see the time change. The fish move in right away, but nature becomes the artist. And different benthic organisms recruit, and the corals grow. And you can see firsthand that difference between the habitat reef and the art reef. And so fast forward, we're doing a third project with the city of Hollywood, and we go in and they're like, we want triple the habitat. And we're like, awesome, you're getting it, right? And then they're like, we also want to put 60,000 to outplanting coral. Would the city of Hollywood ever have put money at coral restoration? It's unheard of in Florida. But through experiencing it and seeing that impact, that value of that relationship with nature has changed. And now they're invested into doing reef with us every year. and continuing this program. So I'm most proud of that.
That's such a big tourist draw too, you know. So how many more people are going to want to come scuba dive and snorkel in this park that has all this art and these sculptures? Do you find local artists? Do you have one artist you work with? Is it per project basis? How does that typically work?
Yeah, so we have a reef builder with reef cells who we can take any image, person, or logo and scan it and make it into a reef. So we don't work with artists in the sense of individually sculpting or scanning, but we're looking to bring in more artists from around the world. So we want to do call to artists where we can engage people within each different region and do different unique concepts. But we have a standard protocol in terms of construction and materials. So often we're the ones that actually make them, but we work with artists to do different designs and ideations of what type of art should we do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. So
that's very cool. Well, we have a special announcement. We're going to take a 3D mold of us right here. We're going to drop it in next. No, I'm just kidding. Last question before we wrap up. Where is your favorite place to scuba dive?
Oh, wow.
It's a tough question, I know.
That's so tough for a
like asking your
diver
favorite
because everything's so different. You know, I really admire the biodiversity, a lot of the Indo-Pacific, and so I've gotten the opportunity to dive a few different wrecks off of the Philippines from World War II, and just seeing like the resiliency of nature and experiencing the history of the shipwrecks was really powerful. And also cenotes in Mexico have really deep Mayan ties. In Florida, we have, you know, gorgeous reefs, so it's tough. I'd say Indo because I love all the little intricacies of reefs.
Okay, one last question. Share an experience or a memory you have from a dive that just made you fall in love with the activity.
Okay, an experience from a dive.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You're underwater,
So many.
you're floating.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Well, I tend to have a lot of really awesome experiences with marine animals that sometimes would maybe freak some people out, but a really beautiful moment that I had was I went on a night dive and did a manta ray dive in Hawaii, and the mantas are just gliding over you like a underwater ballet. And as soon as I got down to settle in, I had a green moray eel come over to me and started wrapping around my leg, and I hear the girl next to me screaming in a regulator, and I'm like, it's okay. And he just danced around and went up and around my hair and off into a fish ball, and it was just such a beautiful moment. And there's just such uniqueness in getting to actually build relationships. So at our reefs, we monitor at least monthly or quarterly at some of our sites. And we actually had a green moray move into one of our reef modules, which is a big deal because eels are really picky about where they live and they want to be safe. And so to find one that called one of our reefs home was pretty incredible. And now he's our resident green moray. And the fact that he felt safe there and building a relationship with an animal like that is really beautiful. So I'd say the two eels have really made an impact on me diving.
That's awesome. That reminds me, one time I was diving with two of my friends. We were just kind of floating along, and 3 manta rays passed us in the opposite direction, and it was just we just kind of looked at each other, did a little wave, and 3 friends just passing each other in the ocean. It was such a cool experience. You just feel like you're in a whole different universe. So if you've never dived before, highly recommend checking it out. And congratulations on taking just, what sounded like a coffee meeting with an artist and making it happen, and doing all of this amazing coral restoration. So appreciate everything you're doing, and good luck in future successes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, let's give it up for Dr. Thomas.